Thank you so much for all of you to join us with this media briefing. Am I audible? With my mask on? Am I audible? I prefer having my mask on. I'm audible. Thank you. As Thabo has said, today we are doing a weekly media briefing from the Gauteng Provincial Command Council. We will start with the PPE procurement investigations, deal with that first, and then come back to do a comprehensive briefing around what the trend this week is around coronavirus in our province. I am joined therefore by the MEC for Treasury and our senior Treasury officials, specifically to ensure that we are able to deal with the issue in the public space that has to do with procurement of PPE. And I must say something that has greatly embarrassed the Gauteng provincial government. And I will share with the public today about what has happened with regard to this matter and what the way forward is. So let's go to that, and then we will come back to do a comprehensive health response to map out what the trend is in our province. So I want to go to the slide that deals with PPE. So the first thing I would like to say is, to the people of our province, that as the Premier of Gauteng, I've been Premier of Gauteng since 2014. At the onset of my first term of office as the Premier of Gauteng, of a provincial government led by the ANC, clean governance became one of the hallmarks of our administration, both the 5th administration as well as the 6th administration. And this was as a result of the mandate of the ANC that we must deal with corruption and cultivate ethical leadership and look after the finances, the public finances in our province, and ensure that these resources are deployed for the purpose of improving the quality of life of the people of Gauteng. As a result of that mandate, we introduced, during the 5th administration, precisely in 2015, we introduced the open tender system. Many of you know that the open tender system is something that we championed in Gauteng province. We introduced that to ensure that there's greater transparency in the awarding of tenders, because all over the world, the area of procurement is vulnerable and open to corrupt practices all over the world. We introduced this open tender system in order to open up the awarding of tenders to greater transparency, to ensure greater accountability. And as a result of the introduction of the open tender system in Gauteng province, we also saw a significant increase in the number of clean audits in Gauteng province. So if you look at the period from 2014 up to now, and if you look at the auditors' reports, the AG's reports, the Auditor General's reports, there was a substantial improvements in audit outcomes in Gauteng province in that period. quite significant improvement. And every time the Auditor General spoke about audit outcomes, our province was always amongst those that were showing great efforts. So this was part of a consistent effort to send a message to the people out there, the public, members of the public whose money is what we use to do the work we are supposed to do in order to improve the public, the quality of life of members of the public. We've always sent out a message there that we are doing our best to ensure that there's greater transparency in the way procurement decisions are made, there's accountability, and this was shown in the improvements in the audit outcomes. As part of this whole effort, clean governance, ethical leadership, improving public financial management, in addition to the open tender system, we also introduced the Gauteng Ethics and Anti-Corruption Advisory Council, which is civil society led. So I appointed a group of civil society leaders who are very active in the area of fighting corruption in the NGO movement, in civil society movements, in the trade unions, who are part of the Anti-Corruption Advisory Council in our province. That Anti-Corruption Advisory Council is still in place even as we speak now in the 6th administration. In addition to that, in 2017 we signed an MOU, a settlement agreement with the Special Investigation Unit. The Special Investigation Unit, as you all know, get its mandate from the President through proclamations, but we asked the Special Investigation Unit that outside proclamations, please work close with us. Certain people, there are specific departments where we have always said there were problems. Health has always been one of them, including on issues of medico-legal claims, the investigation into life, epidemic. So the Special Investigation Unit has been working with the Gauteng provincial government on various investigations in various departments. Some of them lead to proclamations, some they start with an investigation and then we ask the President for a proclamation. But we did that as part of ensuring that we have a group. So the Advisory Council, Civil Society Advisory Council, is a watchdog. The Special Investigation Unit in our province is not only called once, but it is the MOU enables us from time to time, if there is a whistleblower in a particular department, the matter gets referred there, and they are able to say to us, just by looking at it, we need to ask for a proclamation from the President. So the open tender system was also a very important measure to safeguard us. It helped us a great deal. In the period of 6 years, we have had, yes, incidents, cases of corruption in this department, in that department, but we haven't had a grand scale of the allegations we are facing with PPE now. And I want to explain the reason is because the open tender system was a proactive measure to ensure that anyone who gets a tender, who gets a job to do in the Gauteng provincial government has to appear in a platform where others would also be there to watch. Why did so and so get that tender and not me? And as a result, in the past 5 years, we haven't had many cases where tender decisions are challenged by one company over the other in our province. It is as a result of the success of the open tender system. Now come March this year, when we entered a national disaster, which was declared by National Cabinet and announced by the President, we know when we got there, the national disaster occasioned that certain things needed to be done in a particular way. And amongst those issues, there are several memoranda or circulars issued by National Treasury that have to do with emergency procurement, to guide everybody, to guide all provinces, to guide municipalities. So I know for a fact that emergency procurement can always be abused as a reason to be corrupt, to award tenders to those who don't qualify for an inch to be able to get that job. So the open tender system, which would have applied in any circumstance, in any period, would have not applied under this, but the emergency procurement regulations that National Treasury issues and issued through circulars were adequate. Those emergency procurement circulars were adequate to also ensure that we can prevent any abuse of the procurement system for malfeasance, to appoint companies that don't deserve or have no capacity to do the work that they were appointed. So one of the important things to add is that there was one of the National Treasury circulars issued was about centralization of procurement of PPE into specific departments, and in this particular case in the Department of Health. So one of the things you need to understand, I want the people of our province to understand, that when we entered this period, so the Department of Health was responsible for procuring PPE through using that circular, which was the MEC can speak, the MEC for Finance can speak about those specific circulars. The first circular, is it Circular 3?
Circular, it was the National Treasury gave us the instruction note 8 of 1990-20 financial year. So the centralization, it is important to understand that the centralization of procurement, all the departments in our province for PPE, and the reason was very, very simple, and it was a very good reason. But I want to say that that's the thing. So people, sometimes things that are introduced for good cause can be abused. Firstly, to ensure that the standard of PPE must be acceptable, because many departments outside the Department of Health who didn't know, because it's not their daily work. Education is one of the examples. It's not their daily work to know what is appropriate PPE. So the centralization was to get the Department of Health in our province and in provinces, let me go as far as that, to help all the departments to get PPE of an appropriate standard and quality, but also pricing issues to make sure that there's not going to be overcharging, because this is a department that deals with PPE all the time outside the pandemic. The Department of Health deals with PPE. So that was to ensure that there is a proper approach, but there's also maximization to ensure that we get value for money out of this process. A good decision on centralization. In our case, I'm saying that was also, it became an opportunity for abuse, and I'll indicate how this got abused. So there were several instructions from National Treasury transmitted to our Provincial Treasury, and our Provincial Treasury transmitting those instructions to the relevant departments and working with the Department of Health. So I want to say, given our track record in improving audit outcomes, in improving transparency, in improving accountability in this province, as shown by the reports of the Auditor General, indisputably that Gauteng province had improved its audit outcomes. These allegations we are facing now have profoundly eroded public confidence in the government I have the honor to lead. There is no doubt
The scale of these allegations have profoundly eroded public confidence in the work of the collective that I have the honor to lead in this province. But also these allegations have profoundly undermined the tremendous work done by various sectors, our healthcare workers across the province in the fight against COVID-19, and many sectors that have been mobilized in this fight against COVID-19. So there is no doubt in my mind that these allegations have profoundly impacted on this work. And that's why we decided that today we will first start, before we do a normal briefing on our work on COVID-19, we must first give a report on this matter of PPE procurement. So exactly what happened? So one of the measures we put in place at the very beginning, I did a media briefing on the 5th of June. Remember, if you look at our media briefing on the 5th of June, I did in that media briefing say that the Gauteng Audit Services, which is called GAS, the Gauteng Audit Services is also working very closely with the Department of Health in monitoring all the procurements that are happening there. So the Gauteng Audit Services had been given a mandate at the request of the MEC and the HOD. So Dr. Masuku and Professor Lukele requested that we should bring the Gauteng Audit Services as one of those things the audit services must do. In April, they did this request through, the MEC did that through the letter from the HOD in April, to be precise, the 17th of April. That letter came to our Treasury. Gauteng Audit Services falls under Treasury. For Gauteng Audit Services to start doing an audit of PPE procurement. And at that point when the request was made, it was also clear that we are going to go into huge amounts of procurement, huge amounts of money. The audit services did an audit, and this is what auditors do. They were doing an audit, they were not doing a forensic investigation, and they identified, the Gauteng Audit Services did an internal audit, and out of that came back to the Department of Health and to myself to say that they have identified areas of lack of compliance in the procurement of PPE, but they feel that the most appropriate way to act, they are auditors, the most appropriate thing is to appoint a forensic investigation, and in this particular case, the Special Investigation Unit, so that the Special Investigation Unit can go back, including look at those specific allegations or areas of lack of compliance with the regulations. So the audit services came back to me in May, to the MEC for Health in May, and me and the MEC for Health and myself agreed that we must indeed do what the Gauteng Audit Services is requesting. At that time, they had looked only at a few procurement areas, and then in May, to be precise, from the 25th of May, the Special Investigation Unit was given the mandate. The Gauteng head of the Premier's office administratively is the DG of the province, at my request, after signing appropriate documents, met with the Special Investigation Unit from the 25th of May. After all this process and the request was made to me and MEC Masuku to now do a forensic investigation. And that forensic investigation started at the end of May. One of the important things is to identify is that amongst other things identified by the audit services there was that purchase orders were just being issued to various companies. Now, what you have seen in the media, those amounts issued to different companies is purchase orders. It's not the money paid to the companies. So the audit services said to us in May, this issue of issuing purchase orders and the audit services also said they were concerned about how just that work was being conducted. In the way in which service providers were being interacted with, it was not in accordance with the emergency regulations. Immediately after initiating this process, we know the CFO of the Department of Health resigned. I want to make it public because on the 5th of June at this media briefing, I did say, we have not just the audit services, that the Special Investigation Unit is already investigating PPE. On the 5th of June is before there were these allegations in the media. I did say it here. And I made, those of you who attend our media briefings, I made it clear, whether if an official is found to have been involved in corruption, whether they have resigned or not is not the issue. They must be found. I was not at the time making a conclusive statement, but I was saying it doesn't matter whether someone is still in the department or not, but if anyone resigns when the Special Investigation Unit is doing their work, they will be found in this country and there shall be consequences. What is the update so far? Since the Special Investigation Unit started doing its work on the basis of our memorandum of agreement of secondment, but simultaneously a request was made to the President by myself. Again, we do that with the advice of the Special Investigation Unit. So they started work on the 25th of May. And simultaneously, we put a request to the President for a proclamation. And that request, I particularly put it at the beginning of June for a proclamation for the Special Investigation Unit now to have all the powers that they may not have under our MOU, because this is a very serious tender. So just an update to you is to say that initially there were 91 companies that were being looked at, and these are now companies that have been given purchase orders to deliver PPE, and some of them have delivered some PPE. Some of them, the quality of the PPE may be an issue. Some of those companies were also not paid on the basis of failure to deliver or the quality of the PPE. But our Treasury, our Gauteng Treasury also went further to say to the Department of Health, you should not pay. Now that we are doing this investigation, at that point, there was up to R1 billion of PPE that had been ordered, and our Gauteng Treasury advised the Department of Health that don't pay these companies given where we are now. So I can tell you, at the advice of our Treasury, an amount of R1 billion which could have been paid to companies. Yes, some amounts were paid to those companies prior to where we came to, prior to appointing the Special Investigation Unit. But through this intervention by our Treasury, an amount of R1 billion which could have been paid to companies, that was stopped. And subsequently, many of those contracts were being cancelled, and I can say HOD was advised by our Treasury HOD to cancel those contracts. Many of them have been cancelled, others are still being cancelled, but this is a process that started just on the basis of the credibility of the information they were presenting. and their inability to deliver the quality that was required. If you ask me which ones, I can't say to you now, but out of these 91 companies, the full number of companies now that are being looked at by the Special Investigation Unit is 102 companies. In other words, it's all. And it doesn't, we are not suggesting that all the 102 companies are not proper businesses. We are not suggesting that all the 102 companies were appointed inappropriately. We are not suggesting that all of them did not deliver proper PPE, but they must all be looked at. And that's what I want to say, to explain that because the audit was able to identify on a preliminary basis that there was something that was not going right, everybody who came into the party must be properly investigated. And that's what the Special Investigation Unit is doing now. So all PPE contracts of whatever amounts, paid or not paid, including those that are cancelled, because the cancellation also invites question marks that need to be looked at. All that is being looked at by the Special Investigation Unit. I have given the Special Investigation Unit, just based on secondments, I've given them to complete this work as quickly as possible, because they have been able to speed up some of the investigations that we have asked them to do. And I can say that there was a period where the SIU used to take very long, but in the province in the last few years, they've been able to implement investigations. We have several investigations. We will be briefing the public department by department. Not today. Today I just want to focus on the health PPE. They've completed that. There are disciplinary processes on some of these departmental investigations. There are also criminal cases being pursued on some of those investigations that the Special Investigation Unit has done. We're convinced that as soon as they finish this investigation, we will deal with the crux of the matter. That PPE is very, very important for our frontline workers. It's meant to protect them. It's meant to empower them to be able to do their work. It was not meant for the loot. It was not meant as an opportunity to open up that as a front for looting. And as I emphasize that it doesn't mean every company whose name is there got this work through malfeasance. It doesn't mean they did not deliver. It doesn't mean they overcharged. And that's what the Special Investigation Unit is doing now, to help us be able to establish who, but also be able to hold specific people accountable. Because of how serious, now these allegations have damaged also the work that the MEC for Health, as the lead MEC, Dr. Masuku, has been doing. He has been leading our team in the province on this front very well. And I must say that I'm disappointed. At this point, I'm really, really disappointed to have an MEC who has been leading in this front very well, facing allegations that I can't ignore. This cannot be ignored by any serious government, nor can the ANC ignore, and the ANC itself has taken specific decisions. So we know, as a fact, as the Premier of Gauteng, I'm therefore giving MEC Masuku leave of absence. Initially for the next 4 weeks, we're hoping that all these investigations will be completed in this period, so that the full report of the Special Investigation Unit comes to the fore. And these many allegations that have been thrown his way it is not advisable for him to be bedeviled by those instead of focusing on the battle in our hands. And the battle in our hands is to save lives. We are now preparing for the peak. The peak is very close now. And I need to say that, as you will see when we go into the next briefing, our province has really been working extremely hard. Now on the ground, we also have a lot of civil society organizations that are helping us in the hotspots. You'll see that report, that are helping us to respond. But the PPE story, this PPE procurement malfeasance, I can say malfeasance just based initially on the audit, but the real full story will come out of the forensic investigation. This PPE story has the potential to sidetrack us from the battle of saving lives. And it is shameful, utterly shameful, to have money meant to help save lives being open for general loot in the way that we think when the Special Investigation Unit comes, it will be able to expose those areas. And again, I want to say that in there may be companies that have really done a great job. I want to emphasize that I issued a memo to all departments as the Premier of the province. I issued a memo in addition to those circulars from National Treasury and our Provincial Treasury. I also issued a memo in April to all departments, firstly saying the procurement of PPE is very important. We must ensure that we support local manufacturing. In other words, businesses that have capacity to manufacture locally in our own province, that are proper businesses, must be supported, including supporting those who are going to be manufacturing cloth masks, township enterprises, black businesses owned by women, as part of the drive to ensure that the production of this PPE is localized, but it is. We also emphasize that this must be done cleanly. There must be no corruption. So that is why these significant allegations around procurement malfeasance undermine everything we have been doing. So I am confident that we will get from the Special Investigation Unit everybody. So in other words, there are many businesses that may have also delivered PPE, but according to our Gauteng audit services, they had been red flagged, and our health department was advised not to pay them. In that 1 billion that was stopped, the payment that was stopped. I don't want to speak about any specific company today, because the cases and issues about any specific company is what the Special Investigation Unit will be able to establish. So thank you very much, and I think that for me brings me to the end of an important issue that we wanted to brief the people of our province on procurement of PPE and allegations of corruption and what we are doing about this. I'm hoping that as we soldier on with the real battle in our hands, and the real battle in our hands is to save more lives, to ensure more people recover like myself, people who get infected, and I'm very grateful for those who send messages of well wishes, and I'm grateful for those who have recovered. The recoveries in our province have improved tremendously. You will see that report later. We're now up to 62% of recoveries. I'm very grateful, but it is the work also of our health workers. I experienced that myself when I was at home, COVID positive, came face to face with our health workers, our public health workers, to whom this PPE is meant for. I came face to face with their fears. I came face to face with their bravery. I saw what they do in order to save more lives. Even with a lot of these recoveries, it's interventions truly done by our health workers. These are our heroes. That's why we must protect public resources. That's why every single cent that gets allocated for COVID-19 must be safeguarded. And I must also say to you that we now want everything that has to do with COVID-19. It's not just a PPE. We want to make sure that there will also be investigations of all COVID-19 expenditure to just satisfy ourselves, whether it's infrastructure or it's food, to satisfy ourselves in our province. We have fed 2 million people since March. But we want to satisfy ourselves also that even with that, the procurement of the food was done properly. I don't want to wait until there is a whistleblower who comes and say something didn't go well in this process. We work very closely through this secondment. So I just want to check if there are questions. You bear with me. The team from the advisory committee, bear with us. We just want to entertain questions on this. First, Thabo, please come back. This is your job. And then we will go back to present the progress on the health response. But this matter is serious, and that's why I just want to deal with questions only related to it. Okay, let me, for completeness, so that you don't ask me a question, there will be an acting MEC for health. So before you ask me who, let me, for completeness, I have appointed MEC Jacob Mamabulo, who is the MEC currently of transport, public transport infrastructure, to be the acting MEC for health. He will do his work in transport, and in the next 4 weeks at least, when we are doing all this work, this investigation, MEC Jacob Mamabulo will be the acting MEC also for the Department of Health. In addition to appointing MEC Mamabulo, I am also going to ask the Minister of Health. I have been talking to the Minister of Health on a daily basis. He himself has been phoning to ask me when I was COVID positive how I am. But I also want him to also add a technical team to our department. So HOD Lukele, Prof. Lukele, the Minister of Health has been requested by me to also send an additional team, because I don't want us to go into the peak with any shaky grounds as the Gauteng province. So thank you very much. We can take questions on this one. Thabo, just make sure we can do that as quickly as possible so we can complete our briefing.
Yes.
The COVID update is very important.
Okay.